Good morning, friends. It's Sandra Clay. I'm the pastor at Cook United Methodist Church. Welcome. Hey, one of these days, I hear probably middle of next week, it's going to be warm enough to get back on the patio, and I cannot wait, especially after the beautiful sunshine, at least here in Middle Tennessee this morning. Here at Cook's, we are praying that your Thursday, God's sweet gift to you, has started with peace and joy. And if not, my friends, hang on, it's coming. Hey Janet, good morning to you. We are praying today for our Lisa. Lisa's having some really tough days after her stem cell transplant, but that is the nature of that beautiful beast. And so for Joe and Lisa, you guys hang on. We're praying for you. We know God has something good in store for you, and we are sad with you that it's so brutal. So prayers for comfort enough to take some extra steps today, sending our love. And we're continuing to pray for Angela in the passing of her father, a great giant of a man in her life. And so Angela, we are praying that you feel your dad's spirit with you, and know that it is your God who holds you close and brings you peace. We're praying for Jean and for Bill, and for all of those who are struggling. Miss Jean, praying for strength and that you would feel the comfort of your own bed in your own home very soon. Bill, keep your chin up. We're praying with you and for you too. And there are tons of us, are there not, who are facing something in these days. So prayers for one another, for peace and for hope. Today, good morning, Polly. How are you? Today we're gonna travel some, and so hopefully we won't get whiplash. But I'm using, and again, one of my new favorites, Rachel Srubras wrote this book, The Desert of Compassion, for the Lenten journey. I just want to remind you again, it is a wonderful gift. Personally, and not just for this season, you could use it at any time, but in particularly this season that we choose a wilderness of sorts. And I want to share some things that I've learned because of her devotional in this book entitled Radical Acceptance. Again, these are not my words. Desert of Compassion, that's where they're coming from. But you know, preacher, I got a few things to say too. So here we go. Winston Churchill, I believe, is the one who said, if you're going through hell, keep on going. That is hard work. It takes not just courage and moxie, it requires a strength that we know is beyond ourselves. Now, I don't just mean we're being dramatic and we call this difficult time we're in hell. I mean when we are going through hell. And there's another person that I wanted to introduce you to today. And it's because Rachel Srubras introduced her to me. I'd heard the name before, but didn't know quite this story. Another quote for you, Marcia Linehan said this: how to get through a life that's not the life you want. And she's thinking like just in this moment or in this season, how to get through a life that's not the life you want starts with radical acceptance. Oh, that's counterintuitive for us. We want to push against what feels not right and to resolve it. We want to change it. We want to make it right, but we have to start with acceptance, Linehan says. And she should know, because she lived a life very far from the one that she wanted in her young adulthood. She was suicidal and had other personality challenges, was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and at one point ended up in an institution, kept from sharp objects. She only had a bed, a chair, and a very small window that was barred so that she couldn't get to the glass part of it. But even all of that confinement and limitation didn't stop her from trying to end her life. So she used what she had, the walls, and she would bash her head against the walls or against the floor. She swore to herself and to God, whom she met in that place, that one day she would be able to help others who were suffering to get out of that hell. And she did. And she did. Jumping a huge part of her life. We know about Linehan. I know about Linehan, and this beautiful writing from Rachel Srubus tells us about her because she is the one most closely associated with dialectical behavioral therapy in the mental health treatment world. There is to really do excuse me, some damage, but to simplify it enough that we can keep going this morning, that the DBT, that DB therapy, is about engaging with and trying to synthesize or integrate together two very seeming opposites. And so it begins with radical acceptance, but it will move us toward change. In the same way we've been talking about forgiveness, how do you offer forgiveness for something and you don't really know what you're forgiving? You know that you feel wronged, but you don't know the name of it yet. Well, how do we change something unless we have made peace with it enough to not have this buffering kind of cloud around us in order to get to the things we want to change? And so here's the dialectical opposites to help us kind of get on track with where she is and what happened in her life, so that we can receive Rachel Srubus's gift for us today in her own story. Whew, that was a mouthful, sorry. So it can be true, both of them, that it is spring almost. I know it's coming. The days are just around the corner. But it is also cold. Now, not today so much, but they're saying tomorrow here. Those two things can be true. You can laugh in the very midst of your grief. These two diabolically opposed things can be true at the same time, which can lead to a peace, even in this moment, that is not as we wish it was. Do you see how training with a person to help one who is suffering in hell, in hellish circumstances, having someone to help you navigate that can indeed lead you to a peace, to accept the things I cannot change, to simply recognize that it is as it is, not in defeat, but because you and I know that there is one who loves us, the one who created us, the one who's made a way for us to be redeemed, is also making a way for us to know His power, His wisdom, His direction, His guidance, His peace, His covering. So when Marcia Linehan, this is kind of back to her part of the story, how she began to work her way through and discover something for herself that her caregivers could not offer her yet, is that she was lovable. She discovered rather, that she really did love herself. She wanted the suffering to end, but she didn't want Marcia to end. Well, when you feel like they're both so intertwined and enmeshed, maybe that's the reason some folks decide, I cannot make the change, but yet they cannot find a way to love themselves. And she did. She began to build a life worth living. And this is also the way of Jesus. She did it by helping other people. Remember when he said, I came to serve, not to be served? Actually, he said, the Son of Man came to serve, not to be served. I have heard it said inside the walls of the church before. When asked for help with something that was going to be fairly time intensive, a person responding to that request shook their head like this and wrinkled up their nose and said with some ire in their voice, you know, we're tired from working all week, so when we come here on a Sunday, we come to be served. Not that the whole church is that way. Not that the whole of the whole church is that way. But even when she thought she could not, Marcia, because of the things she was learning about accepting where she is and then allowing God to show her and empower her to make those changes, she was able to do that for herself. And this dialectical behavioral therapy is a part of that as well. So I want to share with you, again, these are not my words, but from Rachel Srebus's book, and this one devotional in particular. She wanted to share with us this acceptance and then radical change. Listen to this. Now I'm going to use first person language because I'm reading directly from her book, but this is Rachel's story. My now deceased father was an active alcoholic whose disease caused instability and turmoil in our family. At age 14, I was subjected to the unconscious yet powerful scapegoating mechanism that's common in dysfunctional families, and she was made the identified patient. She was forcibly admitted to a locked psychiatric unit of a hospital, despite there being zero, zilch diagnostic evidence that she belonged among the people who were suffering from psychoses or suicidal impulses. But she had no choice but to stay hospitalized for 7 weeks. Upon her release, the parenting that was leading to some of the problems in their family did not improve. Matter of fact, it got worse. And those facts in her personal history, she says, were very hard to accept. There were times when she tried to kick against the goad. I mean, the truth is she was emotionally scarred, wounded and scarred by adults who were not equipped well enough to cope with their own wounds and responsibilities. And so she raged and she blamed and she pathologized things, especially when they shamed her. But that behavior did not alleviate her pain. Matter of fact, it turned it into suffering. Learning how we are our own worst enemies by what we tell ourselves can be changed in the same way it did for Marcia, the way that it did for Rachel. Here's where I want to challenge us, my friends, is that sometimes the world treats us, and by world I mean your parents, your extended family, your children, your co-workers, your employer or your employees, your spouse, your children, people who are important and impactful in your life may treat you as if your life is not worth so much. But that is not your truth. There is no need for us to fight against those things that we may not be able to change, but to begin telling ourselves the truth, allowing God to remind us in even deeper ways, and then changing what we can. I love that prayer by Reinhold Niebuhr, the Serenity Prayer, the one I've already intimated. Let me tell you another very brash way to understand this. You can't reason with unreasonable people. So why are you going to waste our time? Why am I going to waste my time and my energy trying to do exactly that? I can live the truth anyway. And the truth is, you are lovable and you are loved to the uttermost. God made you good. Matter of fact, here's the Bible verse that Rachel Shrubus uses for this, and I've got beautiful words directly from her I want to share in just a second. Do not, Paul wrote to the Romans. This is one of my top 10 verses of all times because it helps us understand where our starting place is when the world's got us, wonky. Do not be conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. You know how Rachel Shrubus in her book kind of writes from the Jesus voice or from the God voice. Listen to this from that verse. I have made you. Matter of fact, I'm going to start again. And I'm going to use that personal word I as if I would dare to speak with the voice of God. But when I get to the word you, I want you to say your name aloud. You ready? I have made you good, acceptable, and perfect. With you, my beloved, I am well pleased. God spoke those words over Jesus at his baptism before he'd done anything in ministry. I'm sure he was a good boy growing up. I'm sure he was delightful in the neighborhood, but that was not just personality, that was nature. His nature as the Son of God, the Son of Man. But he speaks those same words about you before we do anything, my friends. He has made us good, acceptable, and perfect just as we are. And so there is no need for us to try to change ourselves so that we will be accepted by another's. And I'm not saying some of us don't have some behavior that needs to be rectified. However, hear this from Rachel's own words about that battle between acceptance and change in her life. Through my own contemplative pursuit of personal healing and wholeness, I came gradually to understand this. The mistreatment I undeservedly suffered warranted sorrow and anger. But expressing these feelings to a compassionate helper, not kicking against them, is transformative. Compassion, help for myself, for others, but for myself, compassion helps me move toward acceptance, accepting the changeably painful facts of my personal, accepting what I cannot change from my personal history. Just accepting it frees us, frees her, frees you to stop combating them. And when we can accept them, then I can look at what is changeable. And our behavior kicking against something that robs me of even more energy and more peace can stop. I can choose, Rachel Streba says, I can choose not to live in reaction to the wounding I once experienced or am experiencing now. I can choose to move forward with hope, mindful of the past, but not captivated by it. And the way she chooses to move forward is to write beautiful works like this for you and me. So hear this. You are loved exactly as you are. You are encompassed by that same golden, holy presence that Marcia Linehan was encompassed by, that led her to the first steps beyond her agony. She experienced those in a chapel where she knew her life was redeemed, but it doesn't have to happen in a church, in a Sunday school room. It can happen anywhere, my friends, and your life too. Every unchangeable aspect of it, and every free moment in the present is redeemed. Your life, every moment, what you can't change and how you are in this moment is redeemed. Your life is worth living. Now that's radical acceptance. In order for us to truly allow God to guide and guard our steps, we have to believe that we are worth that effort. You are. You are. God has made you perfect, good, and acceptable, just as you are. The Hebrew word, I love this, in the first chapter of Genesis, in that poem that's written in the poetic way, creation is talked about, tov. It is good, tov. It's not just good, like I like it. Tov means it is imbued with beneficial qualities. So it's not just for yourself that you're good. You are good, and God has given you to the world because the world needs you. Now that's a good place to be here in the middle of the Lenten season. You are worth all of this. All of what Jesus went through, he chose because of you. May you learn to choose to love yourself, for you are a gift of God. Let me pray for us. These are Rachel's words too. Alleluia, light of the world. Thank you for giving me this life. Thank you for giving each of us the lives that we have. In this moment, we don't even offer disgruntled complaints or groanings and moanings, no eye rolls, no nothing about the things of the past. Every moment is redeemed by you. And from the very beginning. The moments we don't even remember, you made us good, acceptable, and pleasing. You see each of us as your beloved. And so life with you is absolutely worth living. Again, alleluia, light of the world. Thank you for giving us this life that is so very much worth living. Help me live it today with a new acceptance of who and whose I am, that every breath I take, every word I speak, every action I perform, is empowered by your strength, your wisdom, your will. We love you, Lord. Amen. It's good to be with you today on this Thursday, my friends. May it be filled with all of God's very best. Remember, tomorrow there will be a post for a devotional time. You already know it's going to include some things about St. Patrick. And there will be a bonus on Saturday because I forgot last Friday. So blessings on all that you do. And I will see you soon. Bye.